This is going to be a build video for a module that will allow you to use your hobby grade transmitter, such as a Taranis, to control several toy grade RC quadcopters. This is thanks to some smart people in RC groups that have written software for the Arduino that allows it to mimic the protocols necessary to fly those little quadcopters. So this will be a quick step-by-step video to go through the process of building the module. The heart of the module is an Arduino Pro Mini. This is what runs the software. In the middle is a board that was also made by somebody on RC groups, and it's available on Oshpark. So that's this board, and it will hold the Arduino as well as the transmitter module, and that's the module here. This was from Banggood. You also need a FTDI programmer to program the Arduino, since it doesn't have the USB built into it. So this is also from Banggood. So this board is going to hold the Arduino as well as the transmitter module itself, and there are several surface mount capacitors and resistors, voltage regulator that have to be soldered on here. That isn't too difficult. You just got to take your time, and I'll show you the basic steps for soldering those on. I usually start with the shortest components first. In this case, most of them are surface mount, so that's you can start with pretty much any of the resistors, capacitors. I'm going to start with the resistors, the 1K resistors on the back side here. This is one of them. You can see it's really tiny, but the easiest way to do this is going to be to put just a small amount of solder on one of the pads, and then put hold the resistor over where it's going to go with the tweezers, and then just lightly touch that one pad that has the soldering iron, and that'll melt it enough to make it stay, and then you can solder the other side. So that's the procedure that I'll go ahead and follow. So it may be hard to see, but I did solder the one side of that resistor on. So now that that's on there and it's laying flat, I'll go ahead and solder the other side. With these surface mount components, you don't need much solder. So now I'll just continue to repeat that process with the other resistors, the 1K and 10K, as well as the transistors, and do that again on the other side as well with the capacitors and the voltage regulator. I've completed the soldering of the resistors, transistors on the back side, and so those are ready to go. I'll now move over to the front side and do the two capacitors and the voltage regulator. Now for the larger capacitor that goes on the front side of the board, it does need to go a specific direction. On the board it doesn't specify which way to put it, but you want the orange band that's on the capacitor to be facing down, so closest to the board edge. Okay, so now I have the capacitors and voltage regulator soldered onto the front side of the board. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the board a little bit, and then we'll start soldering on the connectors that hold the transmitter and the plug into the radio. Okay, so now I've got the two jumpers soldered on. So those are ready to go. Now that just leaves the soldering the Arduino on. The Arduino that I have linked in the description does not have the jumpers soldered on, so we'll go ahead and solder those on to the Arduino first, and then we'll solder it onto the actual board after that. I finished soldering the pins onto the sides of the Arduino. We don't want to solder the pins on either end though. The board that it's going to plug into doesn't have the holes for that, nor does it need them. Before I solder it onto the Arduino though, I'm going to program it. And so what I'm going to do is just push this in and apply a slight amount of pressure onto the unit to make contact, and then plug this into the computer and program it that way. Okay, so here's my little contraption for holding the programmer onto the Arduino. Just a rubber band, applying pressure to make the pins make solid contact. So we'll go ahead and program this now. I finished soldering the Arduino onto the board now, so that's done. So all that's left is to plug the actual transmitter module into the board. Like that. And we're done. So all that remains is to plug the module into the back of your radio. Push it in, and again mount your antenna however you want.